This is Penn Woods, interviewing for the Oklahoma Living Legends. I'm visiting at the Indian Art Show at the Oklahoma Historical Society in June 1973 with some of the artists who are exhibiting at the Historical Society in the Indian Art Show. I'm visiting at the present time with Bert Seabourn. Bert Seabourn is both a creative artist and a commercial artist, and he is art director for the Oklahoma Gas and Electric Company. He also has exhibited in a number of shows, both in Oklahoma and in other states, and has won a number of awards in the field of creative art. Bert, I would like to start. Why don't you tell me what your Indian background is, what tribe it is, and what the heritage is, and basically from the Indian standpoint.
Well, my Indian tribe is Cherokee, and of course, basically the Cherokees came from back east on the Trail of Tears and settled here in Oklahoma as a result of the government moving them.
Getting into the art field, Bert, I wonder if you would tell me, from the Cherokee standpoint, are there any distinguishing characteristics to Cherokee art as opposed to other Indian art?
No, not really. In the field of art, I think most all Indian art started out as flat, two-dimensional art, and the only way actually you could tell one tribe's art from another is the clothes that they might wear, or maybe the facial characteristics, or some of just their basic way of life, maybe their dwellings or the weapons they used, something like that. The Cherokees primarily noted for their weavings back east, and in North Carolina their basketry done with cane weavings are quite popular.
There are certain characteristics of Indian art that I think are obvious even to the person like myself who is not an artist, and certain things that probably many of us who are not schooled in art fail to recognize that still may be characteristics. Two things I notice in Indian art generally are sharp lines and distinct lines and bright colors. These are just two, and they may not be the most distinguishing characteristics. There are things that I notice, and there may be other things that I fail to notice. What do you feel are basic characteristics, in your opinion, of Indian art that makes it stand out and be recognizable as Indian art?
Well, like you say, most Indian art, when it's done in the flat, two-dimensional, traditional style, is it's outlined art, and these outlines are graduated down from a black down to a gray, and then on down to a white. But in my particular paintings, I do some traditional art, but most of mine are more. They have more of a story to them. I might have a central, just a portrait type face, man or woman, but then I go in the background, I try to tell a story, either using an animal or bird, legend type things. And my art really isn't, and that type of art isn't really called traditional Indian art, even though it is Indian art. And to me, as long as it's an Indian that does the paintings, you can call it Indian art regardless of the style or characteristic of the painting.
What part of Cherokee are you, Bert?
Quarter Cherokee.
The picture that we made with you in the picture, why don't you describe that picture and tell me what message you're trying to convey, or make any comments you would on that particular picture, including what may have inspired you to draw that particular picture.
Well, in this picture, actually, it's a Cheyenne man, and I call it Oklahoma man. The Cheyennes are a very prominent part of Oklahoma, and here particularly in the central and western part of Oklahoma, you find more the Plains Indians rather than the woodland, of which I'm a member. And I was just I had worked up a small sketch previously for just a drawing, but then I liked the figure, the face, and I wanted to make it larger. And that particular painting is a 24 by 36 in size, acrylic on canvas. And just liking the face, I just played that up, and it's just sort of a stark, dramatic type painting.
Did something you saw inspire you to draw that particular picture, or paint that particular picture?
Well, not really. I just wanted to show maybe, I think there's a lot of grief and hardship etched in the face there, and I was just trying to bring out a lot of feeling, mostly.
You have won a number of awards in art shows. What would you say, what are the principal awards that you have won?
Well, I've won a number of awards, and I've won awards in Wyoming at the Sheridan National Indian Art Show. I've won several awards several different times at Gallup, at the Intertribal Indian Ceremonials. I've won awards in Phoenix at the Heard Museum, Scottsdale at their annual. Here in Oklahoma, I've won a number of awards here in Oklahoma City, as well as Muskogee, Philbrook, and Tulsa. I've been in several traveling shows that have toured the United States and Canada. And I guess that's the major awards I've won.
Do you feel that any characteristics of Indian heritage have benefited you from the standpoint of your own art career, both commercially and creative?
Well, I don't really know. I think just maybe hard work more than anything else has resulted in where I am in the art field.
Do you have any, have you participated, other than art, have you participated in any of the Indian powwows or exhibitions or any other events?
No, I go to a lot of powwows, and just to observe, or maybe to make sketches, take a few photographs for reference, but as far as actually participating, I haven't.
What advice would you give to a young person, either whether Indian or not, who might be interested in going into the field of creative art?
Well, of course, you need to practice and draw. I think that's more the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And you need some kind of schooling, if nothing else, just to find out the different instruments and tools and how to use them. But then the rest of it is up to the individual. Regardless how much schooling he may have, he just can't quite cut it until he starts producing himself and turning out more paintings. The more paintings he turn out, the better they're going to be.
Imagination plays an important role in creative art, doesn't it?
Yes, you need to, I think, reading and observing is two of the requirements in order to tell a good story. You need something to say before you start painting, of course.
Thank you very much. This has been an interview with Bert Seabourn at the Indian Art Show at the Oklahoma Historical Society. This is a follow-up at the Indian Art Show at the Historical Society. I'm visiting with George Smith Watchetaker, and that is spelled W-A-T-C-H-E-T-A-K-E-R. You're Comanche, is that correct?
Right. Right.
What part Comanche are you?
I'm a full-blooded Comanche. A lot of people know me. I think most of the people know me by Woochie Watchetaker. That's my nickname, and I think about 75% of the Indians know me as Woochie. So that's what I go by.
You're a dancer as well as an artist.
Yes, dancer and artist, so forth.
Tell about your dancing a little bit. When did you start in on your dancing?
Well, let's see. I've been dancing off and on. That is, ever since I was about a year and a half old, 2 years old, and I'm 6'7" now, and I've practically danced everywhere, I guess.
Where are you from?
I'm from Elgin, Oklahoma. That is, originally from Lawton, Oklahoma, but I get my mail through Elgin now, so that kind of puts me in the vicinity of Elgin.
How long have you been painting?
I've been painting since about 1945, something like that.
What age were you then?
Oh, I guess I was about 40 years old.
That seems a little old to start something new.
Yeah, 35, 30, I guess, I would say about 35, I guess. Yeah.
Had you done any painting or art before?
Well, I've been painting ever since I was a kid, but I never thought about selling or trying to get recognition on it. I've done it for myself mostly. So even when I was going to school, I've done lots of artwork, and every chance I got, I go around these people that knows quite a bit about art, and I take interest in looking at pictures and sort of self-taught, you know. And one time when we had this art instructor from Germany who was hired by the Bureau of Indian Affairs to go around these Indian schools to teach Indian art. Well, I kind of pushed myself in there, and I picked up quite a bit of his teachings, and that's where I kind of picked up most of my. And from then on, I just kind of developed my art just here and there.
What do you consider your basic technique?
Well, I try to stick to my original style of Indian painting. I was told by this instructor sent by the BIA that the Indian should stick to his original technique of painting, and that's flat painting. So all my paintings now are just mostly flat work. I don't see, I can't see where I should be any different. Being an Indian, it's the original style of Indian art, so I try to stick mostly with flat work style of painting.
Is this your principal occupation now?
Well, I'm also a house painter. I belong to a painters union down in Lawton, and I work for contractors, and I'm a sign painter also, and I do a lot of sign painting, and I do a lot of Indian shows that go around put on Indian shows. I have several that's coming up that I'm gonna do this summer, and I have just many different ways to pick up my time, you know.
What are some of the shows coming up?
Well, this one of our people down in Lawton, namely is Robert Sprague. He's has a book out on what they call grassroots, and he has another book coming out that he's gonna introduce to the public in next month. That'll be on the 13th of July, and he wants me there to sort of on an entertainment committee to where he introduces his book. So he wants me to do the Indian part of the introduction of the book. So that is where it's going to take some of my time, and I've also been invited to just have several big Indian ceremonies and powwows throughout the country, and I try to make as much as I can. Sometimes I can't make them. Conflicting dates makes it almost impossible for me to go out and keep all of it.
We made your picture with one of your works. What was the name of the one you shot your picture with?
That was the Eagle Dancers.
Why don't you tell us about what is that? Why don't you describe that and tell us what it is all about?
The Eagle Dancers was a picture of two warriors, and according to the Indians, I think most of the people now understand what it is that we hold the Indian in a high esteem, and everything that we do, the eagle always is a bird of honor to us people, and it also signifies that with the guidance of the eagle, due to his natural instincts for his hunting ability, the Indian holds him in a high position. And we have among the Plains Indians not only the Comanches, but also the Plains Indians and the Southwest Indians. In fact, all Indians, I think, have a dance honoring the American eagle or the eagle, whether it's American or, but it's eagle. And this is the painting that I did is the eagle. I call it the eagle dance to signify a successful hunt. For the eagle to bless them for a successful hunt. That's the reason why I had the shield in the background there, the lance and the shield, and that's for a successful hunt. And they were asking for the blessings of the eagle.
Do you feel there's a basic story behind most of your paintings?
I tried to have all my paintings. I tried to have a story behind it, or it's really, I try to keep my paintings where in true life that you would see what the Indian does. For instance, one of my paintings is an Indian lady holding a baby. Well, you take a lot of these, lots of these Indian women, they go to powwows and they carry their babies like that. And sometimes I go to these powwows, I think, I look around and I see where these Indian women are holding babies, and it just makes a pretty picture. And another that I have is about the peyote ceremony, and I try to show in my paintings the mysteries of the peyote Native American Indian church, the peyote culture, and I know lots of people don't quite understand just what peyote is to the Native American Indian church. So that is the reason why I try to show in my paintings. I try to show the public just what the peyote or the Native American Indian church means to the Indians.
What do you recommend to the young man or young woman who is interested in becoming a creative artist?
Well, I think the young artists, whether it be a boy or a girl, I think the thing that they would do is for them, if they are to take up Indian art, is to study their Indian the ways, the Indian ways, the Indian traditional ways, and the way they dress, and the different dances, and the different dress, the way they dress, to get a really authentic picture of different tribes. For instance, my people, Comanches, I think my paintings show the true authentic. My paintings show the authentic dress of the Comanches, and that is what I try to do. The real authentic, the truth of the way they dress and the way they dance, and that is, I think, for a young person to know, is to learn the way they dress and the way the different dances and the way they dress for different dances and performances or whatever they're doing. So that's what I think they should learn.
Thank you very much. This has been an interview with George Smith, Watchetaker, and I'm going to spell the last name, Watchetaker. He's from Elgin, Oklahoma. It's another interview at the Oklahoma Historical Society Indian Art Show, visiting with Bill Flores. That's Flores. Bill Flores is an Indian artist with a unusual and different and very humorous style in much of his work. We want to get a little bit into his background and just visit with him briefly about his style and what he is trying to do. Bill, to begin with, what is your Indian background?
My tribe is Cherokee Papago. My father's tribe was from Arizona, Tucson area. My mother's tribe is Cherokee, and she was raised around Claremore in Inola area, eastern Oklahoma. Basically, that's my tribal heritage.
What part Indian are you?
Three-fourths.
Three-fourths Indian.
Three-fourths Indian, right.
Bill, I've seen a number of your things. The thing that to me sets it apart in many ways from a lot of other art is a very definite sense of humor that so much of your art has in it. Why don't you tell us a little about your concept of art and where how you developed this particular style that you have?
Well, my idea was basically is that I found out a long time ago that the Indians have a sense of humor. And to enlarge on this, I've just taken situations that would happen, could happen to anyone actually, but what generally happens to the Indians and for hunting, what was happening on a hunting incident, and accidents probably would happen result from this. But basically the light side is my approach of Indian art, the subject matter. The style, I use a very definite wash drawing technique. It's not the flat drawing art that most Indian artists use. It's because that I've studied commercial art at various schools, and from this I've started this technique.
One of your pieces was fairly well known to people, were the Kerr-McGee glasses that were given away a number of years ago. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's right. It's not generally known, but there was 4 designs that were made of the glasses, 4 designs, 4 glasses, and as I understand, they gave out 130,000 dozens of these as promotional to sell gasoline. So I don't think you'd have to worry about this today in our gasoline shortage. You couldn't give those glasses away.
I saw a cartoon the other day that someone that you have to give the attendant glasses in order to get gas.
That's right. That's right. Of course, those. I understand now that some of those are collector's items, and I've heard them as being sold as high as $2 each now. So when they were first made, I think they were about 6 to 8 cents each. If you just go out and buy one.
What is your have you participated in other Indian events other than the art itself?
No, basically that's all that I've really been interested in. I haven't. I'm not a dancer of any sort. Just Indian art's all I've really been interested in. Of course, now recently I've gone into the serious side of Indian art. Some of the more dramatic things that are done, but only in my technique style that I'm using on this.
I don't remember now which picture did we make a photograph of you with. Could you tell? Do you remember which one it was?
Yes, it was the Cheyenne Autumn. It was a gnarled tree with 2 teepees in the background, and there would be a peyote meeting in the progress. You can see the silhouettes of the Indians inside with the campfire and such, and it'd be at night, of course, and then the moon and smoke drifting up from the teepees. But it was a comparison between nature and man. How you have to just the gnarled tree. I mean, I'm talking about just the everyday trials. What happens to it.
Do you try to have some kind of a message in all of your art?
No, not necessarily a message. Maybe a thought, but not a message, no.
You've been active, Bill, I know, in trying to help develop an arts and crafts program that would be beneficial to Indians of Oklahoma as a whole. Why don't you talk a little about that?
Well, the name of this is called One Eye, Oklahoma Native Enterprises Incorporated. Our main goal is to collect all of our artists and craftsmen into a group that can soon set up a world market of Indian wares. And if this had come about, then the Indians, craftsmen, should be able to get a fair price, and also the people would know where they are and all this. But basically, that's the whole program.
What progress have you made? I know that at one time I sat in with you all in a meeting where you were talking about the railroad station, and that fell through.
Mm-hmm.
What progress have you made in this effort up to this point?
Well, actually, we had been shooting for some governmental funds, grants, and et cetera. But at this time, everything's been frozen, so everything's at a standstill, although we do have a lot of people that are behind us and working to this end, and I see it coming to one of these days. It should gel. It's just sort of in limbo at this time.
Do you feel that a great deal of the old Indian crafts have been lost as a result of no market?
I think it's a little bit of this, but I think basically it's the fact that a lot of our younger people are not interested in continuing to do these arts and crafts, because there is a noticeable loss and a big gap in a lot of things with a lot of our people. don't do anymore. It's just a lost art, actually. But I hope that through this program we'll start pulling some of these back.
What do you feel about the importance of preserving a certain amount of the old Indian heritage?
Oh, I think it's something we need to do. I think that there's more preserved than most people realize. I think that there's an awful lot there because, to give you a good example, I was one of the judges at this latest, the first Miss Indian Oklahoma pageant contest, and we had a chance to question some 14 contestants, and they were from various tribes in Oklahoma. And I would, personally, I'd felt that our younger generation had really gone down the drain, but after talking to these girls, interviewing them and such, it brought back my complete feeling on the Indian youth. We don't have to worry about, well, not totally the Indian youth, but all of our youth of America today. I believe that they know what's going on, so we don't have to worry about that. It'll take time, but it'll swing back.
What do you think is going to happen to this AIM movement? Do you think it will die a slow death or what?
I have no comments on that. I'm not familiar with their total program. I, like most Indians, do not agree with their tactics. We agree with their thoughts and what they plan to do, but I'm not familiar with their total program.
What advice would you give to a person who is interested, whether Indian or not, a young person who's interested in going into creative art?
I would say if they're interested, just stay in there, practice anything, any type of craft. It's something you just can't pick up, you can't do. I've been painting over 20 years myself, and I'm still learning things in the arts and crafts, but you have to just practice. Practice is the key. And if most people would realize this, and kids that are starting, they just can't walk out and do a particular thing because they've got to just hang in there. That's all I can tell them is just practice.
Thank you very much. This has been an interview with Bill Flores at the Indian Art Exhibit at the Oklahoma Historical Society. It's another interview at the Indian Art Show of the Oklahoma Historical Society. I'm visiting with Frank Cass, that's C-A-S-S.
Yes.
Do you have an Indian name, or do most of you have an Indian name now, or do you have just...
I don't have an Indian name, no. This is,
I know a number do, but you do not. What is your Indian heritage?
I'm a Choctaw Indian. I'm full-blood Choctaw.
Full-blood Choctaw.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you from?
I was born in Stigler, Oklahoma, 1933.
How long have you been interested in art?
Well, I'm a sign painter by profession, and I've always been, interested in art since I was a child, but I just started painting oils a little over 2 years ago, and just that I never knew whether I could do the work or not, and that's the reason I never started painting earlier.
Had you ever done any creative painting before then?
No. No, I took my art course from Gene Stewart. He's a Western artist, and I've seen some of his paintings. I liked his work, and he did the type of work that I prefer to do, so I, took a course from him.
How long did it take you to sell something?
Well, I just now sold one here about 2 weeks ago, and the one that I painted last year, so it's overall it's been, that was my first sale, so it's been over 2 years.
In actually selling art.
Yes.
Tell us about the picture we shot you with.
Let's see, that was Quanah Parker, one of the first ones I painted, I think. And there's Kicking Bear, a Sioux chief, and Geronimo, and a picture of Adam Trujillo. I think he's a Taos Indian. And
have you painted Choctaw?
No, not yet. I've been asked to, but I just haven't got around to doing it. I haven't found time to do it yet, and I just my work keeps me pretty busy all the time, and I've been trying to find time. I just don't think I can do it.
Well, these are basically the Plains Indians you've been painting, haven't you?
Yes.
Why did you select the Plains Indians rather than one of the 5 tribes?
Well, these particular Indians just interest me because of their heritage and their contribution to Indian way of life, and because they're all well known, and
I just read stories about them, and I just found these particularly interesting. I just found their pictures, and I paint from pictures of the Indians.
Do you paint exact replicas, or?
I try to as close as I can get to.
Do you? What do you plan in the Choctaw area? What do you plan to paint?
Well, I'd planned to paint some Choctaw chiefs, but I haven't found some adequate pictures, that I could paint from. That I can see some good details in, because I want to do a good job, and I just, got to find one that I can paint from.
What advice do you give to someone who is interested in painting?
Well, it takes determination and the desire to, to want to paint and learn how to work your colors and just keep after. It takes a lot of practice. That's all I can say. A lot of practice.
Well, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate this interview. This is an interview at the Indian Art Show at the Historical Society with Jerome Bushyhead. Jerome, yours is a very famous name. Watch the rocking too much; it records. Yours is a rather famous name. Are you? Can you give us a little of your Indian background and any kin you may have to some of the Bushyheads who have been famous in Oklahoma history?
Well, actually, my name is well known out in the East, but mainly they're Cherokee, the family out there. And of course, my father, who was a Cheyenne and Arapaho councilman for a number of years, got acquainted with Dennis Bushyhead, and they became very, very good friends. In fact, they claimed each other for brothers. So actually, that's the only really famous notoriety for our name. As far as here in my name goes, as far as here in the mid-states or in Oklahoma, El Reno area, my name has been built up through basketball and basketball playing, in fact, with El Reno during 1946 and 48. And of course, in 1948, I played against Governor Hall in the state championship or regional championship, and of course they beat us out by 1 point, and they eventually went on and took the tournament. But this is where I built my name up through the mid-states, is through my sports activities and being with El Reno, of course. And as far as the background and history of the family, we are Cheyenne. My dad, on his side, he is a part Frenchman. Of course, his line of blood comes through also the Guerrier brothers, who they were the first, they were Frenchmen, and they were the first ones that had an Indian trading post around Gary, Oklahoma. And they called Guerrier, they spelled their name the French pronunciation way, and so Gary, of course, has been shortened to Gary. My mother, she was Cheyenne, part Kiowa, and Irishman. Her dad was what you call a half-breed. So the line of our blood beyond that, I don't know too much about, except we had a grandmother who was close to, she passed away about 8 or 10 years ago, and of course she was pretty close to the what they call Washington Massacre, and she knew pretty well a few stories about it, but at that time I was just a little too young to remember, and now I wish I had listened a little more. But there were some stories that she told us which were pretty hair-raising, and of course herself, she didn't speak English, and she wanted to more or less, in fact, let's say she hated the white man up until about 10 years before she passed away. And of course, then from there, our line of blood has come down through different phases. We got people. My grandfathers were involved with the peyote ceremonial. In fact, they were the first chartered members around Calumet.
So this is, we have a lot of history tied up with our names and everything as far as the Cheyenne side goes. But to talk about it, it becomes really involved.
What part Indian are you?
I'm Cheyenne, 3/4 Cheyenne. Now the other quarter is pretty well mixed up. I've got French blood, I've got Irish blood, I've got Sioux blood, and I've got Kiowa blood. So I think that's a real, what you might call real good fighting mixture. At least that's what it appears to me.
Tell us a little about your interest in art and how it developed.
Well, primarily my interest in art has always been ever since I was in grade school. I knew how to draw. And so all through high school I continued to take all the art courses I could. From there, after I graduated out of high school, well, I didn't think too much of it, but I went on down to Seminary College in Louisiana, Shreveport, and went on and studied a couple of years in fine arts there before I went into service. But I remember one thing my professor told me when I first went to school there. He asked us to send in an example of our drawings. Well, I did an Indian theme picture, so he called me in for a discussion, as they all do. And so he just told me, he said, Jerome, he said, I'm not going to try to teach you anything. He said, as far as I'm concerned, he said, you've already made your grade. He said, and to teach you what I know, he said, I think would distract from what you already have. So evidently he's seen something there that I didn't, because it took me a number of years to even think about the potential of me being an artist, because I would go in art galleries and see other Indian paintings, and of course, you get self-conscious. You always say, well, you underplay yourself. You say, well, I'm not that good, and I hate to put my paintings up against somebody else because I don't want to be laughed at. So anyhow, up until about 69, I believe it was, I sold 2 paintings, and they went for a very high price. So that sort of changed my mind. I began to think, now, this must be something. There must be something there. So it gave me a positive outlook on art. And so from there on, I started painting, and I started painting with the idea of selling them in mind. So anyhow, I sold quite a few, and then, of course, I wasn't getting the publicity that I wanted, which is hard to get when you're an aspiring artist. And, of course, you have to take the people's prices that they throw at you when you're trying to deal with them. And, of course, you know how they do. You go back in, and your paintings, if you sell them for $10, they might be selling for $70 or $80. You never know. But this is the type of thing right now with the Oklahoma Indian Art League, which I'm the president of, that we're fighting. We're trying to get the Indian artist to better his prices, or get a better price, and also give him the publicity that he really deserves. And I feel with the art now, Indian art especially, in the spotlight throughout the world, that an artist, if he has a little initiative, he can reach that pinnacle of a good selling artist in a short time. Robert Redbird is a good example. I started with him about 2 years ago. He was selling his pictures to me for in my shop from $10 to $50. Now I can't even buy them wholesale. He's gotten so high. He is now a much sought after artist, but of course he's got the initiative to back him, because he goes out for the publicity, and this is what sells the artist. And of course, being oriented to selling and publicity now, this is what I do. I grab for every straw I can where there's publicity involved, because the more an artist is seen out in public, the more people get to know him. And of course, then whenever they see his work, they know him, and a lot of them, if they start liking your style of work, then they become involved with you. Then they want your work. So this is what the extent of my interest in art is trying to get up there where one of these days I can say, well, maybe I can paint 1 or 2 paintings a month, and say, well, that's pretty good a month for me. At least I hope so.
Tell about your operation in El Reno.
That would be my shop. And, well, I've been an arts and crafts shopper. I've been in business a little over 2.5 years. When I first started out, I was just like anybody else. I didn't know the business, and of course I had a lot of hard steps to climb. But I started out with the idea of selling supplies and beadwork mainly. And the idea came to me, well, since I was an artist part-time, why not an art gallery? So I decided to divide the shop in half and make one portion an art gallery. So I didn't know it was a gamble because I didn't know what art was going to sell and who I could afford. I knew I could paint some paintings and put in there, and which I did at the start. I had quite a few of my paintings in there, and so the younger artists, these artists that are unknown, that are trying to climb steps, they started coming to me. Well, of course, you've got to start someplace. So nobody else was trying to buy their work because everybody else was interested in what you call a high-priced artist, or you're selling artist. These other arts and crafts stores, that's what they're interested in. A person that they can sell their art quick. No one's interested in a younger fellow that's trying to make it. So then I thought in my head, I said, well, why not? Why don't I give these guys a break? Because I'm on the same step that they are, a plateau. So maybe we can all enhance each other by showing them grouply. So I started buying their paintings, and got a lot of unknown artists, and people started coming in, and they was taking a look at the works, and they were really very interested in it because they had never seen these artists. They were really amazed at what quality work they did, and yet they weren't known. So then now the shop is getting pretty well known for its artwork and the younger artwork, and people are starting to come out there, and they're getting these younger artists before they get too well known, because once you get known, you know how the prices soar up. But anyhow, in the last year, I'd say the shop has turned from good to fair. At least one thing I can say, I can go in and pay my debtors every month now without having to sweat it out like I was before. But this is what primarily my shop is all about. I'm trying to help my people buy their beadwork, and of course it's all genuine beadwork. I don't try to take in any other thing but the genuine beadwork, and of course the cut beadwork, which is the better quality work, I try to handle. It costs more, but it sells better. And of course, the people that want good beadwork, they don't mind the price at all. And same way with the art gallery. The younger artist is finding out that to a certain extent I can help him, so he's starting to come into me, and he's starting to sell me his paintings. And since I've started in, some of the younger artists, their prices are going up now also. So hopefully that maybe one of these days, if they keep going up and I can't afford them, but maybe one of these days I'll just have my paintings in the shop alone.
What is this Indian Craft Festival that's being planned?
The Arts and Crafts Festival that will be held on July 13th, 14th, and 15th in El Reno, Oklahoma. It's called the Cheyenne Nation Bicentennial Arts, Crafts, and Intertribal Fair. We've projected ourselves into the state program and national program as the Bicentennial Project for 76. This will be our second year. Now what we're trying to do is involve the Oklahoma Indian Art League in setting up their own annual arts and crafts show yearly. Hopefully that we can get a lot of younger artists to see what we're doing. Now we're having our own exhibition in a building separate, apart from the arts and crafts portion, which will be in the Coliseum. Hopefully these younger artists can look at us and say, well, this is what I want to do. And of course then they'll start entering the competition, the art competition and so forth, and join us. And if we feel that we see in the younger artist that has a promise and the potential, and he wants to get in our art league, we'll invite him in. So this is the reason why we want to set up our own arts and crafts show. And also, the thing too we want to promote is what you call sort of a brotherhood effect, or a better understanding of the Indian to the tourist or the Anglo. In the past, it's been the Indian side there has been brought out till just recently, and I feel in the past myself I've had to, being an Indian, I've had to live in white man's society by his rules, by his regulations. I've had to adapt. Now, we also have another standard of living, which is the Indian standard. Now, this is a thing the white man doesn't understand. And so hopefully we can, through this effort, the dancing portion, the powwow portion, arts and crafts portion, he can talk to the people and better understand them why they feel as an Indian should feel, and why their problems are not as complex as the Anglo race. And maybe his philosophy, our philosophy, in other words, will rub off onto him. He can better understand us through this effort. We feel there's a gap there, that the Anglo doesn't understand the Indian to this point, because he seems he's what you call a non-aggressive individual. He don't want to push himself. He don't want to participate in social activity and so forth. But there's a reason for this. He is very reserved, and a lot of times he is not a person that don't want to go out and do these things because he don't feel right in doing them. So he's more or less content with what he has in everyday living. And therefore, he just more or less kind of sits back and just takes it easy. Of course, one good thing about it is he don't have any ulcers. So that's one thing about the Indian philosophy that we're trying to, through this show, we hope the tourists can better understand the Indian by talking to him. And anybody else that wants to talk to him, they can better understand us as people. And therefore, the communication gap, as they call it, will probably be shortened up considerably.
Thank you very much. This has been an interview with Jerome Bushyhead in June 1973. This is Penn Woods at the Indian Art Show at the Historical Society. I'm visiting with Carol Schwadeke. I want to spell that last name.
Soatikee.
What tribe are you?
I'm half Apache, I'm half Pima.
I see. You're full blood, one or the other, is that right?
Full blood, yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm from, well, I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was raised in Lawton, Oklahoma.
You live in Lawton now?
No, I've since moved to Edmond, where I attended Central State College, and after that, got my degree, went out and became a teacher.
I see. What do you teach?
I'm an art teacher.
Where?
Concho Indian School.
Oh, at Lawton, near Lawton?
Now, this is up at
the
Concho,
north of
north of El Reno.
You teach art there?
Yes.
How big a class do you have?
Well, right now I'm on loan. Now I'm teaching creative writing and art, and I have a substitute who's fulfilling my art teaching duties. And for that, I'm in with the open class at Concho.
Do you feel you have some good, promising artists coming on in your school?
I'm sure that we had two of my students who exhibited along with me at Philbrook this year. I'm just positive. They're just fantastic.
Yeah. Who are they?
Janice Totem, and I think she's a Kiowa Comanche, and she's 11. She was a 5th grader. And let me see, Mike Howell, and he's a Pawnee from Pawnee, Oklahoma.
Are they painting in the Indian style?
Yes.
Do you feel that the greatest opportunity for a young Indian artist is to learn and develop the Indian style of art?
Well, that's kind of a heavy question. I think it depends on the individual student, and it depends on the individual teacher. It depends on a lot on her interest or his interest. I'm saying that pronoun for the teacher part, the student too, of course.
What styles do you draw in painting?
Well, I do oil portraits, realistic. I also do landscape painting and watercolor. And, I even experiment in ceramics, clay sculpture, anything that suggests art that I'm interested in.
How long have you been involved in painting?
Well, let me see, for about 10 years, I think.
How long have you been selling? When did you sell your first one?
Oh, about it's about 10 years ago.
Did you start in the Indian style of painting?
No, I didn't. I was trained in public schools, into the Central State College, so that I started out painting and drawing very realistically in watercolor, in oils.
When did you start the Indian style development?
Well, I was kind of a latent developer. I didn't start until about 2 years ago.
And have you won any prizes in the Indian art shows?
No prizes, but I'm in there swinging.
You're working. What advice would you give to a young artist or young art student?
Well, that nothing beats practice. If you have the interest and the desire to paint traditional Indian painting, there's just nothing that can take the place of practice.
Have you participated in any other of the Indian festivals or Indian cultures other than the art?
For example, what?
The dancing or the powwows and that sort of thing.
Well, right now, I'm kind of heading, along with Mrs. Julian Horton, in the Arts and Crafts Show at the El Reno Powwow right now. Before that, we did the Centennial celebration, and we handled the art exhibit for that. And before that, very little. Not as much as I should have, and I have a bad thing because I really was denying myself part of a heritage that I should not have. And had I to live it over again, I would have taken more active involvement in it.
That powwow will be held about the middle of July in El Reno, won't it?
Well, it's right now.
Is it?
Yes, and there'll be another one
for
the Feather and Buckskin show from Jerome Bushyhead.
Yes.
That will be later.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, this is the El Reno all tribal. I've forgotten the name of it. Anyway, it has to do with all the tribes have been being invited to show and sell and to take part in the dancing.
How long does this last?
This is the last day for it.
Today's the last day.
Yes.
Do you have in your drawing, in your Indian art in particular, do you feel that that each painting has a message of some sort?
I think it does. I think it's probably more deeply involved than an average viewer would imagine.
We took your picture with one of your paintings. Why don't you tell us what it was and what its message was?
Well, let me see. Were you taking the one of the apocalypse, the female writers, or the other one?
I believe...
The Gathering?
I believe it was.
Well, no, I'm drawing on information that I've received by way of grandparents. Now, this is not actual for me, although I've seen some of it occasionally. But I was thinking about how probably, a day like today, say 100 years ago, now what exactly would be happening? And would we be about to gather and celebrate one event, maybe a good kill on a hunt, maybe some young person coming of age and about to begin the festivities for that. It could suggest a lot of things, but one of them, I think, would be about how they would, the transportation bit, about how that gradually, I can have a feeling about how they would all arrive, and by what means, and what does the terrain have to do with their transportation. And I wanted my painting to suggest that they lived in a rocky terrain. Now, what problems would they face? The people coming in on horseback, would they be riding singly? Would they be sharing rides? Most likely they would. I think it would be a happy time.
Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting interview. I certainly appreciate it a lot. Thank you.